Hello, my name is Braden Larson, and today we'll be talking about Zulip invitations. Real quick, let's just go over what Zulip is. Zulip is a team chat tool that keeps conversations organized and with topic-based threads inside channels. It's fully open source and is ideal for remote teams thanks to its asynchronous, friendly design. Think of it as Slack, but for focus and clarity. Alright, now that we know what Zulip is, let's talk about its invitations. An invitation in Zulip is how you add users to your Zulip server. When someone accepts an invite, they automatically get access to specific streams that you've selected for them. You can also set their permission level when inviting them, like whether they're just a member or an admin. Given that information, let's take a deeper dive into Zulip's invitation system. This diagram illustrates the user invite process in the Zulip system. It begins with a user submitting the invite through their browser, which triggers a post API call to the backend. The backend then creates an invite and stores it in the database. People who've sent invites can view the invites that they have sent, and this is done by displaying them on a table which accesses them through a GET request that gets all of the invites that that specific user has sent. It is also possible to edit these invites through a patch API endpoint that we've added. The backend checks for validity and applies changes like stream access and user invites when editing them. All invite data flows through key backend functions and is stored across pre-registration user profile, and stream tables, ensuring a consistent and secure invitation process. With that in mind, let's have a look at what it looks like to view invites in the Zulip system. Alright, let's open up Zulip here. Let's head over to the settings bar. We're going to select organization settings and navigate to the users tab. Once we're at the users tab, we're going to click on this little bar up here, invitations. And as you can see, we are now at the invitations table. This is where they are all stored. And this is where you'll access them for resending, revoking, and editing, as well as creating other ones. Now let's have a look at the code that is filling in all of this information on the front end. When the Invites tab is selected, a setup function is called that makes a request to the API endpoint to retrieve a list of all the invites sent by the current user. This data is then passed through a couple of functions and ends up at the populate invites function. This function is what takes that data and fills it in on the table we saw in the demo. Okay, let's have a look at how this goes down in the backend. Once the GET API call has been made, it sends its data to this function, get user invites. This function calls a function called get invites controlled by user, which gets a list of all the invites controlled by the given user. These invites are then sent to the front end in the form of a list that can be looped through by the populate invites function mentioned earlier. Now that we've covered that, let's have a look at creating invites to your Zulip server. Alright, now that we're here in Zulip, let's navigate over to this main menu tab, and we're going to select the Invite Users button all the way at the bottom. This is going to throw up a pop-up menu, giving us the option to create either an email or a link invitation. You'd enter your email, the number of days until that email expires. You see there's a couple options.
what you will join as, the streams you want to enter. You can also just select a default, and the groups you would like for the user to be entered into. Or there is also you can also send the invitation as a link, and the options are still they're very much similar. But instead of entering an email, it will provide you with a link. As you can see, the options are all basically the same, minus an input field for emails. Let's create that, and let's navigate over to the invites table to see our change. And let's do one more. As you can see, you can do the change right here at the invites table as well. Now let's take a look at what is happening on the front-end code. When the user clicks either invite user button, it calls the function open user invite modal. This is the function that opens and displays the pop-up that we used to create the invite. After the submit button for that pop-up is clicked, the invite users function is called. Depending on whether you selected to send a link or an email, it will call either the generate multi-use invite function or the submit invitation form function, which is for emails. Let's take a closer look at those functions. As we can see, the submit invitation form function gathers data from the pop-up using the function called get common invitation data. This function just scrapes the data from the pop-up and formats it so it is ready to be sent over to the API as is. Next, the function makes the API call to the correct endpoint and sends that data over. Alright, now let's take a look at the generate multi-use invite function. This function uses the same function to gather data from the pop-up, which sends it to a different endpoint that is specifically for generating link invites. We'll see later that they used a little bit different tables in the database. Now let's take a look at how things go down on the back end. This function is used to send invites to a list of users on the back end. It creates a pre-registration user object for each invite and adds it to the pre-registration users table. It also sends an email to each invited user's email with the link to the Zulip server's registration page. Now let's take a look at how this works for link invites, or also known as multi-use invitations. This is done using a function called generate multi-use invite backend. This function interprets the data sent over the API call and uses it in a function called create multi-use invitation. This function creates an instance of the invitation link on the multi-use invites table so it can then later be accessed on the invitations table, and you can copy that link and send it to whoever you want to use. Alright, now let's move into deleting invites. Alright, let's pull up the demo here, and alright, now that we're in Zulip, we can head over here to the main menu tab. We'll find the invitation we want to delete. We will select the revoke button, and there's a little message to say, you sure? And then you click revoke, and then it is now gone. Alright, now let's take a look at the front-end code for this feature. As we can see, in the onLoad function that was shown earlier, it sets up an on-click event that pulls up the menu we saw in the demo. When submitted, it makes a call to the API with a delete request while providing the invite's ID that you want to delete. It will remove it on the database, and the function on success also manually removes it from the UI without having to call the populate invites function. Now let's see how that is done on the backend. Data passed to the API is sent to one of two functions, depending on if the invite was multi-use, aka a link invite, or not. The function revoke user invite is used for revoking invites sent via email or the non-link invites. This function gets a pre-registration user object and passes it to the do revoke user invite function. This function just takes that, finds it in the table of pre-registration users, and just removes it from that table and then saves it. Now let's see how a multi-use invite is removed from the backend. To remove a multi-use invite from the backend, the function revoke multi-use invite is used. The main difference between this function and the previous one is that instead of getting a pre-registration user object, we get a multi-use invite object. We then pass that object into the do revoke multi-use invite function, which removes it from the table, which saves all those, and then saves that to the database. All right, now let's talk about resending invites that have already been sent by email. All right, let's pull up the Zulip. We've got it pulled up. We're going to resend this invite. See, it says, resend it. Bam, it says sent. All right, now let's see what it looks like on the front end code. We are back at the onload function, and we can see that the onClick event is added to pull up the UI pop-up when that resend button is clicked. If you submit that or click the submit button there, it will make a call to the API asking it to resend the invite given the invite's ID. Now let's see how that looks on the back end. As we can see, the function resend user invite email is called, and given the invite ID of the invite whose email is to be resent. This function gets the pre-registration user using that invite ID and passes it to the function do send user invite email. The do send user invite email function then sends out a new email to that user, letting them know they have been invited to the server. Now let's take a look at the editing feature. All right, we've got Zulip pulled up. Let's see, let's go over, let's change this one. Let's try this one. Right now it's administrators. Let's change it to members. And, well, why not mess with some of the streams while we're at it? There we go. All right, and see, everything looks good. Let's create that. You can see in the background there it changed, it like updated, and it says successfully updated. So if you close this, we'll reload the page to show that it does actually update. It's not just a temporary thing. Let's change another one. Let's change a link invite. You see that one changes, successfully updated it. And let's have a look at the email, because the first one will send out an email because letting you know that whoever was emailed the invite, that it has changed. That would be in here. Let's clear out this log so it's more clear what that looks like. Just make sure we get the right one. Let's moderators now. You're promoted. Okay, awesome. And then we'll reload this page, and as you can see, it's letting me know, hey there, this person has updated your email invitation. Now let's take a look at the front end code for this feature. All right. Similar to the create invite feature, the edit UI pop-up is opened by a function called open edit invite modal. After you fill everything out and submit it, it calls the function edit invite. This function uses a modified version of the get common invite data function, which is already used by the create invite feature. And that gathers up all that data and puts it in a format ready to be sent to the API so it can properly read it. If the edit is successful, it will add a little green tag at the top letting you know so. It also manually goes in and changes the value of like the role or anything that has changed, so you don't have to call populate invites again. Okay, now let's take a look at the backend code for this feature. As we can see, the API calls the update user invite function and provides it with the data for the new invite. An important thing to note is that the JSON data value for is multi-use invite is sent as either a 1 or a 0 to indicate true or false. 1 is true, 0 is false. This value is then converted to an integer and then a boolean by the Python code to be used in logic later. The next function, do update user invitation, is called. This will either update the pre-registration user or multi-use invite table depending on if it was a link invite or an email invite. It uses that is multi-use function from earlier. If it is an email invite, it will also send out that email letting them know that their invitation has changed. All right, well, that's everything I have to talk about on Zulip's invitation system. I thank you for watching this video. I hope it was helpful and helped you work with the joy that is Zulip's invite system.